Welcome to On the Point Podcast, a podcast for all things Overwatch with a heavy focus on League, discussing roster moves, weekly matchups, and Season 4, baby!
Yeah, we're back. We're back to discuss all of the many things that have happened.
After the longest of off seasons.
Oh god, yeah. And it's crazy too because coming back into this season, it's literally the shortest season that we have had thus far in terms of games played.
We'll get into this in a little bit, but I
Yeah.
have my theory about why that might be. But before that, I'm Katie. I'm the support main.
I'm CJ, I'm the tank main.
And we are having a grand old time. It has
Yeah.
been, as we missed the opening week because life is still busy and things are still crazy. So we got a double episode this time around. So hunker down for that. But before we get started, we have just a little bit of catch up to do because it's been a long time since we've recorded. And
Yeah, a little bit.
in that time, for one, the San Francisco Shock defeated the Shanghai Dragons to become back-to-back champions. Yeah, guys, it's been that long. Hi.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
And this was a throwdown where it was either going to be the Shock or the Dragons. Seoul was doing a good showing, and Philly was as well, but it was definitely going to come down to these two.
Yeah, they just over the course of the season actually wait,
No, I wrote this incorrectly, didn't
Yes,
I?
you did write it incorrectly.
God bless.
The Shock took out
Seoul.
the Dragons in the winners finals, then Seoul beat the Dragons in the losers finals, and it was Shock versus Seoul that were the grand finals, and it was Shock that took out Seoul 4-2.
You are absolutely right. Oh my god.
Yes. This is why you have me here, because I remember things so you don't have to.
Nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
No.
You could make so many better references than that.
I absolutely could, but it's mostly for the cringe shit post of it. Like, trust me.
What is this podcast if not a cringe shit post?
Yeah, and usually that's your job. I just thought I'd get in on it for once.
That's true. That's true. Yep. It's been a long everything, you guys.
Yes.
Obviously. And we have had a number of roster switch-ups, trades, contract releases, retirements. We are planning on an episode in the future to go a little more in-depth on the new rosters because some of them are mostly the same with a few changes, and some of them are, who are you people?
Yeah, it's definitely a very dramatic change on a lot of teams, some of which have entirely new rosters, and like we'll get into it a little bit over the course of this, but we're really going to keep it down to like the important basically the things that we think are going to make the biggest impact in the season thus far or have already.
And before we get into that, we're going to hit the first of those, actually, with regional movements. The London Spitfire left the APAC region to rejoin the NA region, and both the Philadelphia Fusion and the LA Valiant went to the APAC region. So we have 12 in NA and 8 in APAC, which makes seeding and tournaments and brackets and whatnot a lot easier. And also, friendship ended with LA Valiant. Houston Outlaws is my new best friend.
Yeah, I think that's a very common sentiment this season, just because LA Valiant, like, it was such a colossal clusterfuck. Like, they went from a team that was honest to a fault, to basically just, lying to their fan base, completely screwing over their players, and it was like such a transparent cash grab to sort of take advantage of the fact that like live events could happen in China.
Yep.
Which is just such like when you cultivate the team with the culture that they had, like through every iteration of the Valiant, they were a very positive group of people. Like they generally
This is the team that won the positivity award. 2 players on that team won that award. The Dennis Havelka award. There we go. Thank you, Brain.
which
And
I
then
still think
both
should have been called
times.
the Dennis Havel Cup.
Point. Good point.
I think he would have actually
Counterpoint.
found that funny.
Yeah, true. Counterpoint. Puns are not always the most respectful thing in the world, and I say that as someone who fucking loves them.
No, for
So I
sure. I
can see why that.
wouldn't.
Yeah,
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 I wouldn't suggest it if I didn't think that the man himself would have thought it was funny. But
no,
I
this is
also
also
get
true.
why they didn't do that.
Yeah. So regardless, once again, it's one of the players on the Valiant that wins the Dennis Havelka Award, and then they cut him. But
Yep.
admittedly, Custa left. McGravy was cut.
Yeah, and that was one of those things that sucked because he was always one of those players who I thought like deserved more than he got, especially because like he started off as an okay tracer player, like solid, but I wouldn't, have ever called him like the top tier in that. And then he went to off tank and really, really came into his own. And he got a chance at the league and he did well with it.
Yeah.
And he got the shaft even before everyone else.
Yeah. Well, it was him and Gig and one other person all at the same time.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head because it's been a while.
Was
And
it Lastro?
well, Lastro, like I'm pretty sure. I forget like when they they let go of him, but he's with the Defiant now, so he has a
Yeah.
new home.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, KSF, who is it KSF or KSP who's now going by Kai? I think it's KSP.
it's KSP because KSF is still KSF. Those
And
are
on the Outlaws.
yeah, he's on the Outlaws and his initials.
Yeah. And Kai is with Atlanta now.
Yes.
Basically, most people found homes. And then Agilities, God bless him, who got picked up again by the Valiant, went back to Toronto as a content creator. So
Yeah,
I
I
wasn't planning on continuing to be a Toronto fan, and now I'm like, you know what? Fine.
yeah. Well, Toronto like gets some love from me because I still have Mr. Logics.
This is true. This is true. Toronto's got a good stable this season.
They do, and honestly, we'll get into that again. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but
Yeah.
yeah, basically, London moved to the NA region, which makes a lot of sense considering they have pretty much retooled their roster, and for the first time in the team's history, they're drawing their talent from the European scene rather than the Korean scene.
Yeah.
And it's actually the team that we'll again, I'm getting ahead of myself. So it makes more sense for them to be here, just with the players that they have and the culture and the environment, while the Fusion and the Valiant are definitely more, in the Fusion's case, more Korean heavy than ever, and Valiant is entirely Chinese at this point.
Yeah, because they didn't even bother trying to work out visas with their current line, and they dropped everyone, including their coaches, and then picked up who they could in a hurry. Um,
Yep.
and again, I don't fault the new coaches on the Valiant or the new players on the Valiant for
Oh
this.
yeah.
They obviously didn't
Yeah.
have any say in any of this. And when you are given an opportunity to move up to Overwatch League, you take it.
Yeah, because remember that comes with a salary with a of minimum. It comes with benefits. It comes with a certain amount of prestige. If you ever end up going back into the contenders scene, like it's something that if you're an Overwatch player does genuinely make a big difference for you.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you fall out of league and go back to contenders, they're still like, oh, the league pedigree. You're probably going to get signed to a team
Oh
if you
yeah,
want one. Like,
I just said that.
I'm sorry. I've actually been watching contenders. I'm so proud of me.
Oh my god, well
And
done.
also, it's been very good for my mental health when League wasn't on.
Yeah, no, Contenders is a lot of fun, and I admittedly haven't kept up with it as much as I have in the past. But it's again support tier 2 because that is how this scene will continue to exist. Okay, so that being said, shall we start getting into the results?
Let's do it. We don't want to talk about every single one of these games in depth, but there will definitely be a few where we take the time to sidebar and just be like, holy shit, this match.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of where we'll get into some of the distinctions that happened for these teams and like how they differentiate from last season.
Yeah, and I feel like this first match is immediate sidebar because we started with the battle for Texas. The
Oh
battle
yeah.
for LA is no longer a thing, sadly, rip,
Well,
but
yeah,
we
there's a battle
started
for
with the battle for
California, but
Texas. Yeah, one of my friends called it the battle for Moth, which I thought was hysterical.
the custody battle.
The custody battle. California custody. Um
The custody cup.
yeah, I know that I know that whoever cast this had a name for it that was alliterative, and I don't remember what it
The
was.
California Clash, wasn't it?
Thank you. Yes, that was it.
Yeah, although I God, what was the new El Clasico? Wasn't it
The new El Clasico is the battle for Canada, I think.
yeah, I think that was it. Um but
Yeah.
yeah, so Outlaws versus Dallas. Basically both of these teams are entirely different beasts from the last time that we saw them. Dallas has an entirely new lineup in with literally the only holdover is Doha. But um and I'll get into this because I think Houston is what we're going to end up talking about longer.
Oh yeah.
Um, so
Dallas lost their hit scan player though, right before the
yes,
season.
basically Dallas Fuel, and I know a lot of people, called it, the Dallas Eternal or the Paris Fuel or whatever. And you know what, valid. But what it is to me, it is the Element Mystic reunion tour, because all of these guys, Rush, Young, the coaches that Young had been with Dallas last season. Rush and Aid came over from Paris, but Rush, Young, Sparkle, Doha, Fearless, Hanbin, Jexay, and Repel all played for a team in Korea called Element Mystic, and so did Exy. Literally the only odd man out here is Fielder. He didn't play for Element Mystic as far as I remember, though. I'm going to double check that right now. He did not. He was GC Busan Wave the whole way through. That's what I thought. But basically, this is a reunion for this team, which is one of those teams. Like it seems like every season there's a Korean contenders team that just like becomes the runaway success and ends up giving a lot of talent to the Overwatch League. And in Element Mystic's case, they kind of got split up, but they're back together. And until Xe dropped out, it was honestly this roster to me kind of had a very the sky's the limit vibe to it. The thing is, obviously the lack of a hit scan player hurts them, but they have a phenomenal tank line. And I think, even last year when he was playing for Shanghai, like I was upping Fearless up as like the best tank, the best main tank in the league. I think Hanbin is one of the best off tanks in the league. Doha is one of the best utility supports. Sparkle is an absolutely insane projectile carry who's showing a flexibility here, even if he's not to the same level on things like the Tracer. And of course, Repel, Fielder, and Jexay are all amazing at their jobs. And there's a lot of existing synergy between them. And with Rush and Yong, there's a system that basically there's a familiarity. They know these players, they know how to take advantages of their strengths, because that was something Element Mystic really did a lot in the Korean contenders days. They were a team that was known for kind of saying, okay, yeah, that's the meta, but we're also going to kind of do our thing. Like they would run like Doomfist goats, like because Sparkle was just so goddamn good at it, and they knew how to play around it. And they were still like one of the best teams in the region at the time. So coming into this, I think they had a coaching staff that would do a very good job taking advantage of the strengths of the team and minimizing the weaknesses. But with Xe being out of the mix, there is definitely a hole in this roster that needs to be filled for them to take that next step forward.
Do we
Houston out,
know why Eggsy left?
neck and back injuries that had
Oh
been caused.
no.
Yeah, neck and back injuries that had been causing him a tremendous amount of pain, and I believe it's why that he I believe it's why he went on the inactive for Paris as well for a large stretch of the 2020 season for about 2 months.
Damn.
Yeah, and he talked about it a bit on his stream, and I read a translation of it where it was something that started very mild but got much more intense, and you know, painkillers and medication. Like he needs like fairly consistent treatments to manage the pain, and while things might go, you know, while he might be able to, you know, end up back with full functionality and being able to just exist normally, it's going to take time and constant care, and he just wishes he took care of it sooner.
Yeah, and neck and back injuries are some of the worst things to have to deal with,
Yes.
and they will knock you the hell out.
Yeah. And he's still being like very supportive of the team because these guys are like all friends of his. And you know, hopefully we get to see him back at some point because he's so ridiculously talented.
Yeah, best wishes to him though. Health first, always.
Absolutely. So, like I said, him being sort of forced into retirement by this injury created a hole in this team, and that's kind of where I'm going to segue into the Houston Outlaws, because Houston Outlaws was a team that I like. Here's the thing: while I always took the Dallas side in the battle for Texas, I wanted Houston to succeed, and I'm sure that you and our listeners will remember my frustration with the Houston Outlaws in 2020 because I'm like, you're this close. God damn it.
Oh, yes.
Um, so basically, Houston Outlaws throughout their existence pretty much was always like a day late and a dollar short in terms of their rosters. Like, in terms of, they were pretty much always outgunned in some capacity. Like, basically, when they came out initially and they were, you know, competitive in the league, you know, that was a solid start. But as things go on, it was pretty clear that a lot of the players they came in with were not really at the same level that the rest of the league had gone up to.
Yeah.
Um, and while new pieces came and went, even into the 2020 season, where I think they had a very strong roster at that time, they were always, you know, a step behind. Like the thing is, Muma, again, I love the guy. I like him a lot. I think he is a very positive, you know, force in the community, just overall good dude. But on the main tank role, he was just not cutting it for like 2.5 seasons.
Yeah.
And it definitely hurt the Outlaws' ability to, you know, win games. And then the fact that they needed someone to play main tank, you know, kind of forced hydration onto that role and took a flex DPS option away from them. And while Dante is absolutely a franchise player and they had god tier supports in Repel and Jexay, you know, you had a solid main tank in hydration, but you lost DPS options. And while Dante is he's a player that I definitely was not super high on at the start of the league, but that has like just constantly found like new levels of Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
Um where like Dante is a mechanical threat who does an incredible like job doing the sort of utility part of DPS while also like fragging like a motherfucker. He's always where you don't want him to be, doing the thing that you don't want him to do. Um
Which is the job of a flanking DPS.
yes. And again, he has the mechanics to secure kills in that capacity as well. Um but Linkser and Blase were both very like hot and cold and tended to be cold more than hot. So
Yeah.
you basically ended up like one wheel was falling off the car at any given time, and it just kept them from turning, you know, close losses into wins. So what do? First, they get Junkbuck and add him to the coaching staff, and Junkbuck is awesome. I rate him very, very highly as a coach. He, learned at the feet of Krusty for 2 years and is now bringing all of that San Francisco Shock knowledge of strategy and everything to this team, and it's a great compliment to Harsha. Then you have, again, sort of the continuing the Shock thing. Now they have an embarrassment of riches on the DPS position. Dante, as we covered, is a monster. Hydration, awesome on a ton of flex DPS characters. Happy has just gotten even better with this new roster. KSF, more projectile options, and then Jake coming back later on, adding even more projectile options, as well as someone who can come in and play the brig and add that sort of veteran perspective. Crimzo, I've thought he was an absolute badass even before he got into the league, and we're seeing him like hitting his absolute potential right now with Houston. And Juby was someone who I didn't know a tremendous about going into the season, but has impressed the hell out of me. In everything we've seen him do so far. The question that I had was Piggy and Jangu, because they were coming in from Talon Esports, a team that was very successful in the Korean scene. And the question was, how were they going to translate to the Overwatch League level? And the answer is phenomenally. So basically,
bumper level flank shatters.
yes.
Like, goddamn.
Yeah. So basically, Houston Outlaws fixed literally every single problem that I had with them as a team. From, sort of the coaching issues and roster imbalance of previous seasons. All of that is fixed now. And I was very high on this team going into it. Like, basically, I did think they were going to beat Dallas, despite, me rooting for Dallas. And
you can't see it, but I'm smiling.
Yeah. Hey, no, you know me. I analyze impartially.
I know. I also know you burn blue.
Yes. But it was still a really close game where you got to see a lot of the flexibility of both teams. And also, as the games went on over the course of the week and into next week, we got to see them level up even further. And Houston gets that 3-2 win. It's a really good start for them. And with Dallas, it really goes to show that they can take on top tier competition, even having sort of built-in limitations.
And for Houston, like, this is the first performance we saw from both of them. Obviously, first match, both of the season. Going back and re-watching this game after watching Sunday's matches and knowing how they went down, you can see where all of the pieces are for both of them.
Oh, absolutely.
I did not think Houston would be coming out as powerful as they did. And then they showed the fuck up. And it was... Yeah, once we get to Sunday's matches, I'm going to have things to say. Well, I'm going to have things to say anyway.
Absolutely.
Definitely there.
Absolutely.
All right. That was our deep dive of the episode.
Yeah. San Francisco Shock versus LA Gladiators.
The Custody Cup.
The Custody Cup. Shock, basically the big moves they had were in terms of roster. A couple change-ups. Now in the main tank spot, we have Muse, who is someone I was very high on coming in from Korean Contenders. And they have the backline of Moth, Shu, and Skewed. Moth, obviously, coming over from San Francisco. His main support job was picked up by FD God. And joining San Francisco Shock's incredibly stacked DPS line, they don't have Ons anymore, but they now, the DPS line is Striker, Tayo, Nero, Glister, and Smurf, which again, insane.
Save some for the rest of us, San Francisco.
I don't think they will.
We got to see Tayo play a little bit during this match, didn't we?
No, I think
Sunday?
that was the game against Houston.
Okay. Like, I feel like we don't see Tayo nearly as often as anyone else.
Yeah, it's true. And I think he's a very talented player, but Tayo is primarily a hit scan player who can also flex onto Genji. Like he's known for, Tracer, Ashe, Reaper, Widowmaker, and Genji. But the thing is, if you've got Tracer in there, you're probably going to want Striker or Glister.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bringing in the Genji, you're probably going to want Nero in there. Like he's very very good, but some of the use cases, like the use case for him is kind of a little more limited in this roster, I think.
Yeah, and they brought him in last season because they were down a Genji specialist and Genji was meta, and then they fucking played super. So,
Yeah,
what a wild ass team. But we
yeah,
love them.
I genuinely yes.
Yes. Heading
Um,
over to APAC.
well, hang on, we didn't
Well,
give the
no.
result. San Francisco wins 3-1.
That's true. That's true. And I'd hope that the Gladiators would put up a little better showing, but honestly, I'm not surprised. It is the shock.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and this is probably going to be like my hot take for the episode. I think Deepe is very good for cultivating an atmosphere and a mentality in his team. But the thing is, like, he's never delivered the goods just yet. And like his seasons have definitely been good more often than not, but we haven't seen a team that he has been in charge of like really have that absolute breakaway performance that leads you to say, oh, these, very well could be the guys, in the way that like, Shock and Vancouver in 2019 were kind of in that conversation, like they're always in that spot where like, oh man, they're like, you can't sleep on them, but at the same time they never quite live up to the expectations that you have for them.
Yeah, they've been perennially our fifth to eighth place sort of team.
Yeah, constantly like after the initial like exponential improvement they had in, the middle of season 1, consistently above average.
Yes, but closer to average than outlier and should not be counted. We we've had like three outlier and should not be counted teams, and two of them faced off at the end of season two. So
Yes.
yes. All right.
Yeah.
Now moving over to APAC.
Yes. First off, we have Guangzhou Charge going up against the Shanghai Dragons, and Shanghai picks up a 3-0 victory. Probably not shocking that Shanghai has done that well. Even though, like, basically the biggest change that they have had um, is basically instead of Fearless in the main tank spot, they now have Fate.
Yep, and they dropped a whole bunch of people who didn't get to play a lot last season anyway. I know they dropped Geggery, which
Yeah.
has, let's be real, just completely released my interest in them as a team.
Yeah, that, and I'll be like, do I think Geggery was 100% like the best off tank in the league? No. But at the same time, she deserved a lot more than she got in terms of, game time.
She deserved to be more than a mascot and the one female player in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I genuinely wish that we got more of her, getting to take the field. She's really talented and I think genuinely like could be starter quality for like any contenders team out there and would definitely be a solid, insert into a lot of Overwatch League teams.
Well, hopefully when signings open again, because I don't know if they plan on reopening them mid-season or whenever, or if it's just donezo until next season. But when they open again, I hope that she's in contention. I hope
Agreed.
that, yeah, just
Though,
she
as far
deserves
as I
more.
know, she hasn't really done anything in the scene since departing from Shanghai. So who knows?
I mean, you spend one season on the 0 and 30 team and two seasons on the bench,
Yeah,
enough to make everyone go, why?
yeah,
So, like,
definitely.
I miss her,
Um,
but I feel that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I do
Um,
want to
oh,
talk a
sorry.
little bit before we move on. I do want to talk a little bit about Guangzhou
Yeah, I was just
because
about to get to that.
Choi So-won, my God,
Yeah, yeah. So for the record, guess who else played for Element Mystic?
Choi So-won.
Yep.
this this is one of those matches where I pulled up the VOD and I was listening to it during work because listening to Overwatch matches actually helps me concentrate on other things, which is wild, but it works really well.
No, I
And
get you completely.
I kept getting super confused because like, oh yeah, Choi this, Choi that, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is an APAC match, and I had to go back over and go, who is Choi So-won? And he is bullying the shit out of Void. Oh wow,
Oh yeah,
oh
no.
wow,
Choi Sehwan is awesome, and he's one of the reasons that I was decently high on the Guangzhou charge going into this. Basically, I think they've still got a really strong tank line with Rio Krong and Jihun. They've got a badass back line in Kariv and Mondu. Two guys who I don't think Mondu really got a chance to shine last season at all, but I think he's a really talented player who is awesome in Korean contenders, and Kariv is Kariv.
yeah,
Um,
Korea scary.
yeah, and Eileen and Mike Lee are both also very talented DPS players. And while I do think that this team might be a little weaker without Nero and Happy in their DPS line, I definitely didn't expect them to come out with and basically end up getting slapped in their first two games, because this first one Shanghai Dragons picked up that 3-0 win.
And the thing is, it's I would say that that was a very hard fought 3-0.
Oh, it definitely
I'd say
was.
that's a numbers lie 3 Overwatch,
Yeah, I think it
as
was.
opposed to Philly versus Valiant,
Yeah.
which was just yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like both teams didn't look as strong as I expected.
Yeah, uh, the casters were talking a bit about Guangzhou just having a few cohesion issues.
I think that's definitely a part of it.
Yeah. So I'd love to see more from them. And honestly, given that their first matches were, again, against the Dragons, who are a solid team and one of last year's championship contenders, and Seoul, a solid team and one of last year's championship contenders, like, I would like to see what they do against someone who is not going to immediately slap them in the face on pedigree alone.
Agreed, and I think that that's going to be an interesting thing to see going forward. One other thing that's interesting to me, because like with Shanghai, I'm very interested to see how things look going into this season going forward, just because I feel like Fearless was a genuinely huge part of their success last season. Dude
Yeah.
is one of, if not the best main tanks in the league. He's very, very survivable, can do a tremendous amount of work, and give your team a lot of room to work. Um, so I definitely wonder how much him and his play was like what percentage of Shanghai's success that kind of was, because from everything I've kind of heard about Moon as a coach, when the players talk about him, and again, like what I'm getting is from like the translations that I have because I don't speak Korean. They talk about him being like the sort of mentality coach. Like he keeps their headspace in the right place, cultivates the right atmosphere for them to be confident and succeed. So like I don't know whether the strategy aspect, like a lot of it comes from the players or some of the assistant coaches that are a part of the team. You know, we'll see what this team looks like going forward.
But one of their strongest pieces is off the board.
Yeah,
For them,
and
at least.
yeah, and I feel like you could definitely see it missing in this
Yeah.
first, stretch.
I
Next
will
game.
say,
Oh,
it's
sorry. Yeah.
just one
Yeah.
little thing I noticed during the match where I appreciated this. Again, we go back to Choi bullying the hell out of Void.
Oh, big
And then
time.
we had that pause in the middle of the match. I don't know if anyone else caught this, but during that pause, we had Void has left the game.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was one of those rare looking at the screen instead of listening bits. I'm like, oh, we're paused. Oh, okay. Choi has left the game. Oh my, not Choi. I'm sorry. Void has left the game. I'm like, Choi bullied him straight out of the game. Oh no. Oh no.
Decided to bully his ISP.
Yeah. So yeah, small dumb things that I enjoy,
Yeah.
which is
So
also this podcast.
yes. Um
Continuing on.
yeah, next game we had the Philadelphia Fusion going up against the Seoul Dynasty. And Philadelphia
Dude, you skipped one.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
We're
Valiant
going to
versus
talk about my ex.
yeah, Valiant versus Chengdu. Valiant is an entirely different team um, than we have seen previously. There's literally no familiar faces in their
Crystal.
roster. I was saying in terms of like previous iterations
Oh.
of the team. Um,
Yeah,
Crystal
they
is the only like returning Overwatch League. No, Crystal and Waya or YWA. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he was on the Guangzhou Charge in 2019, and then was like
huh.
inactive for a good chunk of 2020.
That might be why I don't remember him.
Yeah, he didn't really get a tremendous amount of playtime, but
Oh, and
on
Crystal
tank,
had a bit of a scandal when he left, didn't he?
yeah, Crystal.
There
I
were
was
problems.
genuinely a little surprised to see him get signed to another team. Um, I forget exactly what the controversy was, but I think he like lied to the team about going back or something involving his girlfriend or
He
something.
did. There was to my if I'm recalling this correctly, and people in the comments, please let us know.
And I'm looking it up as you say this to confirm.
Yeah. As far as I remember, he made an excuse to go home. I don't remember if it was he wasn't feeling well or there was an issue in his family or something. And he was staying with his girlfriend or hanging out with his girlfriend. Like, the reason that he gave to stay home either didn't exist or he overstayed much longer than he needed to.
Mhm.
But if I'm remembering this correctly, he lied
That
to the
that
team.
that's a good chunk of it. So according to Dot Esports, um,
Thank you,
Crystal.
Dot Esports.
Yes. So basically, he lived outside of the team's residence, often taking extended trips home to China and not replying to management. He lied about his intentions behind returning home, often spending time with his girlfriend in Hangzhou, instead of going and getting treatment for mental health issues or caring for his mother, as he claimed. Um, he also traveled to the United States ahead of season two on the wrong visa, forcing him to travel back to China and re enter the country on the correct visa. He kept postponing his return until February 21st, which means that he missed all of the preseason and the start of stage one. And apparently, he was also unresponsive to the coach's demands, regularly missed scrims and VOD reviews, didn't really pay much attention when he did attend, was often disruptive, um, and apparently, like his attitude only really picked up for a little bit, like when he got to play Zarya instead of Brig, and then kind of slipped back into old habits. So obviously, I don't know how much of this is them, like this is coming from the team. So I don't know how much of it is like them, you know, making mountains of,
Justifying.
yeah, how much is justifying and how much is you know fact. But considering that reputation, I was definitely surprised to see him one get signed by Guangzhou in 2020 and then end up on the Valiant this year.
I
um
feel like for Valiant, if
mhm.
you are recruiting a roster right before the season starts and you have I hesitate to call him proven talent after that particular list. And again, the grain of salt, etc. If you have talent that is familiar in some ways with the workings of League and can play, why would you not pick them up, if only as a stopgap to get your team together to be able to play on short notice? Like, I get it from a business standpoint,
Hmm.
but also, like, it's like picking up XQC.
Yeah, yeah,
They're good, but at what cost?
pretty much. Um,
Or DeFran. They're good, but at what cost? Again.
and on the other side, we have the Chengdu Hunters. We have here a lot of familiar faces. Yveltal and Lei Young are on two-way contracts. Elsa and Amon are still around. But we have the tank line edition of Gaga. Um, in terms of DPS, we have Jinmu and Leave, but also new additions Jimmy and Kaneki. And on support, we have Nisha, Faraway, 1987, and Monk. So a lot of these players are, not as familiar to me just because I like Chinese contenders is something that I just haven't watched as much. But like Jinmu, Leave, Elsa, Amon, they're all known quantities and they're very good. Same with Late Young and Yveltal. Monk and Nisha have looked awesome. Gaga has been amazing.
Oh my god,
Um,
yes.
and honestly, I think the biggest, you know, one of the biggest changes here is we have RUI back. RUI was he started off as the coach for a Chinese team called Miraculous Youngster, who were basically able to take on the best in Korea and do so competitively during the early days of Overwatch. He was brought in to coach Shanghai during the 2018 season after the absolutely atrocious start. But I believe he ended up having to step down for health reasons um, during the season. I don't remember what exactly the situation was, but the next season he was back with the Chengdu Hunters before I believe again had to step away due to health reasons, and the situation was like kind of up and down um, over the course of things. But honestly, I've always rated him very highly as a coach, and this version of Chengdu, like obviously, is still chaotic, still kind of marches to the beat of their own drum, but they look more on the same page and coherent than ever. And I feel like we're seeing with Leave and Jinmu, who are already monsters, like we're seeing a new level to their game.
Yeah, and I mean, they dropped one map to the Valiant. They took this 3-1, and then the next day they 3-0 the Shanghai Dragons. And I think that's the point where a whole lot of us just stared at that and went, what the fuck?
Yeah, and the thing is, you obviously go like, is that like are they going to be that good consistently? Because the thing is, Chengdu is like the Schrodinger's cat of Overwatch because you never know if they're like which version of the team currently exists, whether they are the guys who can go toe to toe with the best or whether they're going to embarrass themselves. Um,
I mean, I think we got a little bit of that in the match with Philly the next week. So we
Definitely.
have some sort of stratification of, okay, we know we're only 2 weeks into the season, but so far they've been performing solidly.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. But that is the point where we all went, what?
Yeah,
What?
and
What?
it's them living up to their reputation, and also like the Scrim Bucks perfectly. Like it was said that sometimes they look like a team that can win tournaments, no matter who you put them up against, and then sometimes they will have a competitive series with the Valiant.
So it's Chengdu.
Yeah,
The
Chengdu
Chung.
is gonna do what Chengdu does.
The,
Um,
how did you get through that and not end it with what Chengdu do? Come on. Come
discipline,
on. Come on.
discipline.
More like disappointed.
Fuck
Yeah,
off.
right. That's it. Yeah, that's my job anyway.
Anyway, up next we have Fusion versus the Seoul Dynasty. Philadelphia Fusion has a few differences in their roster and their behind the scenes. First off, their head coach KDG is no longer their head coach KDG, who was with them last season, has now moved on to be the head coach for the Toronto Defiant. Um, in his place, we have 9K. 9K is much like Junk Buck, someone who was part of the original like shock trinity once Krusty came in, and then became the manager for the Paris Eternal, but he also did a lot of the work to help coach the players who needed coaching. Um, so he's someone that I rate very, very highly. And the majority of this Philadelphia Fusion team is the same. The differences that we have are, one, they no longer have Fury and have instead brought Hotba back, which is kind of amusing to me because he was there at the very start, and then they let him go, and he has now returned. He has come home to roost. Um, their support line, they have added Toby into the mix, which is pretty cool. I'm always glad to see Toby around. I think, especially because he's one of those veterans who can still go. Um, Rascal is an awesome addition to this team's DPS line. And instead of Sato on the main tank, you now have Mono, which seemed to be an interesting. It seemed like an interesting choice to me, just because this Philadelphia Fusion team has in the past, like, these are very aggressive players. And Mono is someone who's definitely been known for a more measured approach, but it's been looking pretty good so far.
Oh
Like a
yeah.
good fit.
And I
Um,
mean, they're down two people right now because of visa issues, are they not?
yes, I believe so, though I'm not 100% sure.
I I remember them mentioning it, the casters mentioning, and I cannot for the life of me remember who they said could not play, but two of the players are having visa issues and are not currently able to play.
I'm looking it up right now to confirm. Um,
Regardless, this was a heck of a match. And this is a score to settle from last year's finals as well.
oh, absolutely, and so the other side of the equation, the Seoul Dynasty. So this is a team that changed a lot at the end of last season, and there's a lot of pieces that are the same from that, and then a couple new additions there, because we have as your tank options Gesture, Marvel, and To You. On DPS, we have Fitz, Prophet, and Sabiel B. And on support, we have Creative and Anamo. Um, so this is a team that like I don't quite know what to make of in a lot of regards, because I'll admit like Fitz has his moments, but I haven't been super high on him compared to like what I feel like I've been colder on him than a lot of other people have. Prophet is an absolute monster, and he and Gesture have amazing chemistry together. Creative has, definitely proven himself over the course of the 2020 season. And Anamo is, Anamo and Sabiolbi, you know what you're getting with them. Their head coach, um, Chengdu, like I don't know quite what to make of him, just because he was the original coach for GC Busan and London Spitfire, came over to Seoul Dynasty, and has been a part of the roster for like the entire time. But I think they kind of like shuffled things around a little bit, but I'm not sure. Like in terms of who's the head coach or what exactly like like who's performing what role.
So, little bit of confusion, but still performing fairly solidly, at least from what we've seen so far. I do have answers as to who is stuck in visa hell for.
I assume it's EQO and Poco.
Yeah, I believe it. EQ and Poco. It might also be Funny Astro.
Just everyone who isn't Korean because they're now playing in APAC.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Same reason Valiant dropped everybody, but
yeah, and that makes sense. But it's not like Fusion is hurting for people right now. Like
yeah,
they have an incredibly high level roster, and we'll see like what things look like when they have access to all of their pieces.
yeah. And
So
honestly, that might not happen until COVID stuff lifts. Evidently, Poco is stuck in France because they are under massive lockdown,
yep,
which here's hoping, y'all. Just stay inside, wear
just
a mask, get vaccinated,
yeah,
do the
get
thing.
vaccinated, wear the mask, wash your hands. Like just keep up the best practices because the more diligence each of us has individually, the sooner this is going to be over for all of us.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, Fusion versus Dynasty. I think Fusion definitely looked like the much stronger team, but Soul Dynasty didn't exactly look bad either. Even if I would have liked to see more out of them.
Yeah. And we'll see how Soul Dynasty continues to perform this week and next. And I'm not sure if they're playing next week. They are. They're playing New York next week. That should be fun.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Moving back over to NA. The next day of games started with the Atlanta Reign versus the Florida Mayhem. Atlanta
You skipped
Reign.
another one again.
Did I?
You did.
Toronto versus Vancouver. Yeah,
You
right.
skipped El Clasico.
El
You skipped
Clasico.
the battle for Canada.
It
Bless them.
honestly, the only thing that sticks into my brain about Vancouver anymore is the fucking breadsticks. Like I can't be asked to give a shit. Like
I mean, I got real sad when I found out that for some reason Shockwave was no longer on the team. Because
yeah.
let's be real, that was part of me getting excited for them. Was the dude's name is Shockwave, and he was good, and now he's gone.
Mhm.
But also, they now have Linkser, so
Yeah, no,
I
like
can't not.
that's definitely the aspect of their team that makes me care even a little bit because I love Linkser. Yuri is an awesome dude. I love, chilling in his stream. It, I will never forgive them for how badly they fucked up with the runaway roster.
Oh no, I
Like
feel you.
I like genuinely you wasted one of the best things in Overwatch's history, and I don't just mean in terms of like quality of play, though they fucking are. But yeah,
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of this Vancouver Titans team is what we've seen before. Shredlock, Dalton, Rolf, and Fire have all, or no, not Fire, because Fire is replacing Karkar. But yeah, Shredlock, Rolf, Dalton, they have been here. They kind of form the backbone of this team with the additions of Linkser on DPS, Fried Wiener. I'm really glad they gave him his full fucking
They
name
gave him
back.
his name back. Yeah.
Um, on
Wonder why they did that.
I honestly I think part of it is just like the league's taking itself less seriously and just having more fun. Um,
Yeah.
and Teru also joining on the DPS line, and Fire on support. Now, a lot of these guys, a lot of these new additions, I think are generally speaking like positive additions, though I don't think that we've seen any like material gain in terms of like they haven't really made any noise yet.
Yeah.
um like Teru has had a couple moments. Linkser hasn't really had a super hasn't really had a star performance that we would like to see. Fire and Fried Wiener have been solid, and that's just it. Like, this is a team that I think if you look at them position for position is just outgunned against most of the teams that they're going to be up against. And also, like, their coach Flubby was with the majority of this team in Second Wind. I don't know, just like I am not inspired by what I see here. And up against the Toronto Defiant, um the Toronto Defiant they've still retained Beast and Logix, um, but I think pretty much everyone else on the team is a new addition. Or no, I guess I yeah. This is a predominantly new roster for them.
Yeah.
They have on their tank line, they have Beast, Sato, and Michelle, which really, really goddamn solid. Sato especially, which, God, considering how much I didn't care for him for like 2 straight seasons, well bloody done, man. Um, so yeah, like really strong tank line. On DPS. They've got Hisu, Neist, and Logix. Again, really strong. Or like Logix, I think, has a tremendous amount of pop off potential. Hisu has definitely proved himself as sort of Carpe's understudy in the Philadelphia Fusion, and has looked good this season so far. Also, we share a birthday, so much
Nice.
love. Uh,
Nice.
um, Neist is a player that I think has had a very strong career, though didn't really hasn't really gotten to show us like what he's capable of in the Overwatch League just yet. I think he's someone to watch. And then in the backline, they've got Ansun Jae, who, guess what team Ansun Jae played for? Element
I
Mystic.
was gonna say, we've been saying Element Mystic so much. Like,
Yeah, Element Mystic, though, spent more like spent a little more time. Actually, no, I think it is the team he was with longest. So Ansun Jae and Aztec, who I've they're solid players that have a strong track record, and I think in this match, pretty much pound for pound had you know were just better than the Titans in term qualitatively, and they also have as their new head coach KDG, the guy who took the Philadelphia Fusion from inconsistent to we're going to stomp you.
nice.
And I think we saw exactly what we kind of would have expected to see out of this matchup.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Moving on, Atlanta Rain versus Florida Mayhem. I'm not skipping one this time.
Yeah.
Um,
Is this one of those rivalries where I never would have expected it to be a rivalry, but I feel like we've got something between these two teams.
yeah, just because I think the thing is they were coming up at the same time, and people like kind of had similarly high expectations, and also there's like the regional proximity of Atlanta and Florida.
I believe
Um,
this was the one that everyone was expecting to be the barn burner for the weekend. We were looking at the Battle of Texas and we were looking at Florida versus Atlanta.
Yeah, though I admittedly I thought Florida was going to look decisively stronger, maybe not to this extent, and the reason is so Atlanta Reign, very similar to what we saw from them last season. You still have the front line of Gator and Hawk, who I still rate very highly. You still have the back line of Masa and Iris. And then Edison is still around on DPS, who I really like. Um, then you have the additions of Pelican and Kai. Kai,
Formerly
especially,
KSP.
yeah, formerly KSP, and Kai, I think, is a very strong addition. Um, in terms of their coaching staff, I think Unter is a very capable coach. You know, coached a strong British Hurricane team, was a part of Valiant kind of picking themselves up last season. So I think he brings a lot to the table. I don't have as much confidence in Sefi, Brad Rajani. Just the
Yeah.
Atlanta Reign are much like the LA Gladiators in that you see those names on paper, you get excited about it, and then they don't quite live up to what you want.
They're the above end of average, but they're still closer to average. Again, fifth to eighth.
Yeah, and I definitely I want to see more out of this team because I think it's a very promising roster, but so far they haven't really been able to bring the potential out of their players. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Florida Mayhem, over the course of the last season, with Kuki becoming their new head coach, has done a phenomenal job of doing just that. Um, so the team, again, largely the same, though with a few faces missing. It's more people that have left than come in.
Yeah.
Fate over to the Dragons, as we said. Byram, Carrion, and Chris all departed, and Saya Player retired. But they made a tank pickup in OG, who I think, on his good days is one of the better tanks in the league. Though the thing is, he is kind of a streaky player, and it's getting consistency out of him that's a big key to long-term success, like getting those good days out of him consistently. Gargoyle on off tank, still a bad motherfucker.
Gargoyle Overwatch is one of the scarier off tank players, and I say this knowing well the existence of Choi Hyobin.
Yeah, it's like Choi, Gargoyle, Krong, Void, and Hanbin are like the ones that I would least want to play against.
I'd put Space up there. Space is pretty damn solid.
He's definitely good, and he's definitely one of the better in the league. I just think those five are on a different level from like everyone else.
Legit.
Though like Space, you make a compelling goddamn argument that he belongs there as well.
Yeah,
BQB,
my compelling argument is Space is good,
yeah.
actually.
I
Leans
mean,
back, yells in Tim Curry.
yeah. Space.
Yep.
But
That's my argument.
I meant to say you could make a compelling argument. I think he's one of the top, but I think he's like, upper end of A, whereas those guys are like S.
But we've also ever only seen him. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not as versed on my season 1 placements, but we've only ever seen him on Valiant and Gladiators. What
That
would
is
he look
correct.
like on another team?
That is a very fair question.
In much the
And
same way that we saw most of Gegary's play in season 1 Dragons.
it's true. And she was still statistically average despite being in
The
the,
literal bottom of the barrel, yeah.
I was going to say the worst Overwatch League team of all time in
I
terms of just
mean,
straight up performance.
yeah. So
Um,
having average statistics when your team is literally dead last means you're actually pretty good.
Yeah. DPS, we have BQB and Yaki, who were phenomenal last season and are looking really damn good this season as well. They've picked up Checkmate and added him to the lineup.
What a
And
good name.
I know, it's great. And they have, for support, still have Gangnam Jin, but they have added Slime, formerly of Runaway / Vancouver Titans, who I think is phenomenally talented and definitely can help a team pick up the tempo and play aggressively. And I think Florida like has definitely looked like they need to tighten some things up, but they've still looked pretty strong.
Yeah. Like
Um,
Florida was also last season one of the stronger teams in the NA region.
at least once they picked things up. Like
This is true.
they definitely started off in a less than awesome place, but once that ball got rolling, it was genuinely a gigantic transformation. And I think Kuki deserves a lot of credit for that as a coach.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So Florida Mayhem picked up the 3-1 victory over Atlanta. Then Dallas Fuel versus the Los Angeles Gladiators, where Dallas gets the 3-1 win.
Yep. Yep.
Hey, honestly, this was, again, I think they did a very good job of like tightening up some of the things that were an issue in the game against Houston. Like I think Doha especially had a much better game, and some of the team play on these compositions was a lot tighter, and they looked really good. And like Gladiators definitely played well, and it was a close contested series that I think leaves you with a solid feeling about both teams in terms of just what they can do. But definitely, I think it continue, it is still that step on the Dallas Fuel cycle of misery, but I think it does bode well.
Yeah. Yeah, again, we're looking at the first 2 weeks of matches here, so I hesitate to say, yes, the battle of the average, but we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see later on. We still got another week of play before the May Melee, and also, oh my god, so many tournaments. Holy
yeah,
shit.
absolutely. And I'm excited to tell for it. So next up, we have going back over to APAC, Guangzhou Charge versus Seoul Dynasty. Seoul picks up that 3-0 win. Guangzhou continuing to kind of struggle out the gate. Chengdu Hunters up against Shanghai Dragons next in one of the two huge upsets of the week, with Chengdu absolutely sweeping aside the Dragons 3-0.
And yet again, this is the point where a bunch of us just transcended reality and went, what?
Yeah,
Okay, what?
yeah. And again, it's Chengdu, but like this is the potential of their roster, and if they can play up to it regularly, this bodes very well for them. Whereas the Dragons, I think, this definitely one, they're not quite as dominant, or they're not quite as dominant as they were last season. I don't think their lineup looks as strong when they don't have Lip in there right now.
I
Um,
think this is a wake up call for the Dragons.
yeah,
Just in
I
terms of, we got swept by Chengdu, we need to figure some shit out.
agreed. And the thing is, like, Chengdu is definitely like chaos incarnate in terms of like destroying your bracket picks, but this is one of those times that just reminds everyone like, no, they're not just the meme team. And especially with this lineup, with, I think, like, don't get me wrong, Eamon is phenomenal at the wrecking ball, but being able to play the meta and do so well on all fronts, including the main tank, having that flexibility that Gaga adds, and also just the level of play that he's brought out, does a tremendous amount of good for this team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the
So
Chengdu zone is going to be a fun one to watch.
yeah, we're gonna see whether the Chengdu zone remains this chaotic place, or if consistency will finally come to this madness. Only time will tell. Um, Following that, we had the Philadelphia Fusion smashing the LA Valiant 3-0, and
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't think there's much to say about this one. It's just, again, the Fusion were just outgunned. We're just completely outgunning the Valiant. Uh,
I
like
mean, I'm gonna be vindictive as hell about this because again, I don't blame the players, I don't blame the coaches, but god damn. Uh my roommate tells me that I talk about the Valiant like most other people would talk about an ex that they hate.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so I'm
Um,
gonna sit here and look at this 3-0 and turn sideways and drink my tea. Like, that's none of my business.
just quietly whisper, "Karma." Um,
Suck it, management.
yeah. But yeah, no, Fusion looked tremendously strong. And also, I feel like in this first week of play, like Crystal looked in, like he was invisible. Like,
Ooh.
like he genuinely did not make much happen. I think Milanran like showed some promise. Like I think he like showed that he's got some solid stuff that he can dish out. But in this current situation, it's a day late and a dollar short.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the lineup where people were taking bets on how long it would take the Valiant to win a map. Not a match, a map. And they
Yeah,
did take one against Chengdu
they,
pretty
well,
much
they
right away.
yeah they did
So,
it almost as fast as possible. Uh,
yeah.
so, but again, I do think we're going to see this be one of the weaker teams in the league, and with how stacked APAC is,
Hmm.
I it's going to be a rough season for them.
And I mean, I would put Guangzhou above the Valiant, partially because I'm a vindictive bitch, and partially because I do think the pieces are better, even if the numbers are in the Valiant's favor right now in terms of map differential.
Yeah, I think so. I would I think Guangzhou would beat them. Moving on back over to NA for the last day of games in week one. Houston Outlaws versus San Francisco Shock. Houston beats them 3-2 with a map drawn. This was a 6-map series that Houston Outlaws manages to grind out a win and they again, normally with the Shock, if they're in a situation where they're going to lose, you see them clutch it out and save the day at the last second. No, it was the Houston Outlaws that did it.
Just watching this, for one, Houston has been a cursed team for several seasons. Like,
I would say
very,
of their
very.
own doing, but
No, I mean, like, season two, they didn't have ownership or management or a budget.
oh well,
Season
yeah, that
three, there
absolutely.
was. Season three, there was getting kicked out because there were fucking homeowners association complaints about their house, which were bullshit, but whatever. And the water main break at their homestand and the lost luggage. Like, there's just been just not in terms of the game itself. Houston has been something of a cursed team.
Oh,
So to see
absolutely.
them come into this season, take the Battle of Texas, and then come into this match and just wipe the floor with San Francisco for the first two maps was insane. That hold on Dorado was nuts.
And like Havana was so close it gave me fucking anxiety. Like
Yeah.
and again, like while I like both of these teams, neither of them is like my team, but holy crap.
I've thrown in for the Outlaws from not from day one, that was Valiant, but since season one. So
Yeah.
this was like like I was expecting this to be a 90-minute match, over and done. Maybe not 3 Overwatch, but close. Like I was expecting, like, my roommate went out for a walk and I was expecting this to be done by the time she came back. She came back in the middle of map 4 and me yelling my fool head off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I try not to scream at matches because I live in an apartment complex with very thin walls and I don't want to do that to my neighbors. I was yelling. There
Yeah.
was so much yelling.
Yeah,
Oh my
no.
god.
This had me popping off like I'm watching a UFC card. Like this was there were a lot of insane plays on both sides, a lot of great adaptations. Junggu absolutely proved himself to be one of the best main tanks in the Overwatch League. Like, just absolutely taking it to Super and Smurf the entire game, and very frequently getting the upper hand.
That encapsulated at the very end by the flank shatter on Havana that led to a team kill.
Oh, I was even gonna say like the that the encapsulated moment came early on when Super got shattered, and the clip we keep seeing, the what?
Yep.
Um, and Happy was absolutely insane in this series as well. Crimzo and Juby played out of their fucking minds. Like, this was just a top to bottom performance, and it
On both sides.
oh, absolutely. Do
Yeah.
not get that twisted even for a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah. Yeah. Can
I oh
just
yeah.
the 5,000 IQ play of it was putting, I think it was Stryker on the McCree
Mhm. Yes.
during putting him on top of a door frame to
Yes.
allow him to
Yeah,
flashbang fan the hammer straight down. Oh my
which
god.
was such an awesome set play, but it's one of those things that, like, now that it's out there, everyone's gonna check. Like, you had to use this, like, playoff strat in, like, week 1.
Yeah, that was some crazy 5,000 IQ. We found this on Reddit thing. Like, it reminded me of DeFran's over the ceiling grab on Hollywood.
Yeah,
One of those things
yeah.
that you will only see once because it's so completely bug fuck insane.
I don't know if I've
But
ever
it's
I
it's
feel like
wonderful.
I feel like I've mentioned this, but it also reminded me of, this was like a back in like Overwatch Apex thing. A team called Meta Athena on Dorado, um, like they completely bypassed the choke when they were on their attack round by going up through the little by going up through the stairs on the left hand side and then just running through the market, going like all the way to like that back corner in that, and then just grouping up and then boosting up a Maywall and then using the Maywall to just completely like it got them above the map geometry and just floated them completely to the other side of that little like tunnel area that overlooks the fountain, and then just
Insane.
came back from the other side.
Oh my god.
It was crazy, and
Oh my god.
I will
This
remember that.
team.
I will remember that to like the day I die, because Monty and Doa were casting it, and they're just like, no, they're running past. What are they? They're using the May. What? I love you, Meta Athena. Like,
Have you been watching Collegiate?
I have not.
They've been in between contenders and before the season started. They
Uh
were
huh.
doing a Collegiate Cup
Oh hell
on the
yeah.
Path to Pro channel.
Mhm.
And there was this one play. I cannot for the life of me tell you which two teams it was. I know it was in like the semifinals. You're pretty far up there. But the usual play that we've seen at the collegiate level on King's Row
Mhm.
was Symmetra teleport the Bastion to the top of the statue and just rain down hell on the point. And it's usually an attack strat. I
Yeah.
watched this team teleport the Bastion up there, and you see something kind of go flying out of the corner of your eye, like, what the hell was that? And 2 seconds later, it shows up Reinhardt killing Widowmaker on the kill feed. And it was this moment of, what the fuck just happened? The Reinhardt teleported to the top of the statue, dashed off to the right to where that balcony is, got the Widow in the dash, and pasted her against the wall.
That is fucking incredible, and I'm going to need to
So
track that down.
the
As a
casters
Reinhardt,
were,
that
yeah.
makes me so happy.
So the casters were utterly losing their minds. And then, God bless the observers, they gave us the replay not only from the like further back point of view, so we're focused on the Bastion, but you can kind of see the Rhine go off, and then they gave it from the Widow's point of view.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Oh
that kind
man.
of crazy 5,000 IQ. It's only going to work once, but oh my god, strat. That's what that reminds me of.
Fucking beautiful. Um
So yeah, that's the list right
yeah.
there. Collegiate Reinhardt. I need to go back and look up which teams they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, Collegiate Reinhardt, Meta Athena. DeFran's over the ceiling grab, and then
And
door frame striker.
I was going to also say the great bamboozle on King's Row, Glads versus London.
This too. Yeah.
Um,
So we've, in 4 seasons of Overwatch and God knows how many seasons of Contenders and Apex
there's a lot of
rather,
crazy
pardon me,
plays out
and
there.
Collegiate.
Well,
But
APEC
yeah,
Premier was a thing as well.
I don't know everything. I'm trying.
No, I'm
Things that
saying
are before my
you,
time.
you said a correct thing.
Yay! I try to do that at least once per podcast. I'm
um,
glad I managed that.
up next, because we gotta keep moving.
Gotta keep going. I had to tell you about it. Also,
Yeah,
watch Collegiate when it comes
absolutely.
up because that's some fun tournament play.
Hell yeah. So next we had the Florida Mayhem versus the Vancouver Titans. Florida picks up the 3-1 win, and week one is closed out by the Toronto Defiant, claiming a 3-2 victory over the Atlanta Reign.
The two teams that I continue to mix up because of their similar color schemes.
Yeah. So up next is going to be week two. We start off in NA. Paris Eternal versus the Vancouver Titans. Paris Eternal picks up a 3-1 victory. Definitely look a little shaky doing it in the first appearance for this new roster, which, again, the Paris Eternal pretty much let go of everything and built a new roster from scratch. Amazing work by Avala just as general manager to just, help rebuild this team from the ground up. Basically, your tank line is Don and Elivote. Um, Elivote being of the Washington Justice previously, but also a fixture in European contenders a while before that. On DPS, you have Suna, Oni God, and Naga. And I've been glad to see Oni God getting another shot because I really don't think we got to see what he's capable of in the in his run with Dallas, because the team was definitely very, very troubled at that point in time.
Yeah.
Um, and then support, you've got Neptuno and Khan. And I think this is a pretty solid lineup out of the different, out of different European contenders teams, and definitely looked a bit shaky here in this first game. But we'll see them again up against Houston. Um,
I continue to be a little hissy that they dropped Soon, but
yeah,
that's also because Soon ran into visa issues with Boston and had to part ways, and therefore he's not playing this season.
yes,
That that's
which
that's some bias on my part.
yeah, which it really is a shame because he's a dude who just is an absolute OG of Overwatch. And despite getting a lot of love in the league, I feel like he deserved a better run that he got.
Yeah.
Um, Next, Los Angeles Gladiators versus the brand new London Spitfire. As I mentioned before, this roster is fully European. Was picked up largely out of the British Hurricane um, contenders team, which is the academy team for the Spitfire. Um, your tank line of Hadi and Mulfig, DPS Blase, Hybrid, and Shax, and a support line of Ripa and Kellex. This on paper is a roster that I quite like, especially, and I think once Sparker comes of age, I think it's another powerful sort of tool at their disposal. Um, I definitely. So the thing is, the British Hurricane. Um, I think they have been very, very dominant over the course of contenders, um in many different iterations, and I think this version of the team was so strong because they had good team cohesion and a good understanding of a meta and how to basically properly play a hero in the meta, and they were comfortable enough with it that they could pick it up and get pacey, really put the pressure on with very aggressive high tempo play. And they definitely tried to do that against the Gladiators, but it just, I think part of it is, they have, I believe, Reprise, their coach here, is their new head coach is not a is not yeah, Reprise isn't the coach that they've had before, so it's working with a new coach, though their previous coach, Fisher, not the main tank player, but
Yeah,
the
not fissure, but
yeah,
Fisher.
Fisher, not Fissure. Um, Denmark, not Korea. Uh,
Yeah.
so he is a part of it. Though there are a couple like some of the pieces are different, and I feel like it is noticeable. Like Hybrid has been popping off a lot, like like a lot of genuinely impressive performances, but there's definitely a lot of little things. Like you see when they try to pick up the pace, there's the mistakes go up, and it ends up costing them. Like the one that sticks out to me is on Havana when they win a team fight in the distillery and on their defense, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go in really hard and just kill the gladiators at their spawn, and they go in and fucking Blase's ice wall stuffs Hadi into the fucking ceiling, and he just completely whiffs a shatter, and then they just get manwitched by the gladiators and murdered outside the spawn door. And that just went from like a really cool thing that could be like kind of a mentality tester in a big way to just getting
Just
absolutely fucked.
tripping over your own feet at
Yeah.
that point.
And I feel like that kind of carried on in the next game that we see as well. Basically, solid. They don't have as strong cohesion, and while they do have some solid individual play, you you need all of those things of understanding of a meta, cohesion, individual play. You need all of them to compete at the Overwatch League level, and they just don't have that right now.
Yeah,
And
you
I
need to
think they
be at the center of that Venn diagram overlap, and they're kind of like Guangzhou has two of the three, and we saw Guangzhou hit multiple walls this past weekend.
Yeah, and I think right now the London Spitfire are kind of moving around in that Venn diagram, like never quite getting into the middle, but like which aspect they have kind of seems to vary map to map. But basically, they're going to need to pick it up. Otherwise, they're going to keep suffering, losses like this 3-0 to the Gladiators. Next, over to APAC, the Chengdu Hunters up against the NYXL, which again, in some ways, is an entirely new team. In others, it isn't. Basically, the only two players from the previous iteration, I believe, are Jonak and Bianca. I think Ivy came later. Um,
I think you're right.
But basically, right now, their tank line is Yakpung and Bianca, which I think is pretty strong. I think Bianca is solid, and Yakpung has definitely made a name for himself in Korean contenders. Jonak and Friday on support. Friday is a guy who I didn't really know a tremendous amount about, but has been in the Korean scene and a fixture of Korean contenders for the past couple years, playing in teams like Geekstar and OZ Gaming. Um, and on DPS, they have Feather, Ivy, Flora, and Guangbong, which I feel like this is a team that is very well scouted. It's definitely a team that I think is in the mold of the 2020 Los Angeles Valiant, where you have a couple people that are relatively big names, and then you have carefully scouted different components to add into this team. And I think a lot of these players have a tremendous amount of upside. What I think is the limiting factor here is the coaching staff. And the reason for that is that it's basically the same. And I know that it's like, but they have a new head coach. Why not? No, he was there since 2019. And
To say, I remember talking about this last season.
yeah,
The issues with New York being the coaching
yeah,
staff.
and IMT, who was just, who was their head coach last season, is now their head of data, which I assume they're putting the analytical skills that he has from his neuroscience background. And he has written some interesting articles about Overwatch, but basically I don't have a lot of faith in this coaching staff, especially because I feel like the early success of New York Excelsior came down to the fact that you had, a coaching staff with Pavane and Garincha and Wizard Hyung. Pavane especially was super familiar with that initial LW Blue roster. Um, and it's just, I feel like they had a tremendously skilled roster whose synergy and fluidity just allowed them to play at a super high level, especially when paired with their individual talent. But I if you look at 2019 and 2020, I don't think you could call them a well-coached team. They haven't had a good system either time and have definitely looked increasingly sloppy and less able to adapt to new metas. And I think there's definitely a lot of talent on this roster, but I feel like in some ways, you've lost a step in terms of the synergy that the old team had, and then you have a coaching staff that I don't think has the strategic knowledge or the ability to impart that strategic knowledge to their team and create like a winning system in terms of like the atmosphere and how they play in game. And I think this is the worst NYXL that we've seen.
Yeah.
And Chengdu chewed him up and spit him out 3-0.
Admittedly, the worst NYXL that we've seen, we go into a little later this weekend, is still able to pull something out.
Yes, and I definitely want to talk about that because I have things to say on that score. So next, Philadelphia Fusion versus the Hangzhou Spark. Fusion pick up the 3-1 win, which I know a lot of times when you see a 3-1, it's fairly close. I feel like Fusion definitely had a decisive advantage here.
Yeah, and if I'm trying to remember because again, it's been 2 weeks of games and my brain is smushing them all together. Was this the one where Spark got the map because Fusion made an error and didn't touch?
I don't even remember because I remember like a C9 from someone in a Spark game, but again, I'm having a similar thing.
It
Though
was either that or New York. I
I
honestly don't
think it
remember
was New
which.
York.
That would make sense.
So with Hangzhou, I want to talk about it real quick because they have a couple departures and some new additions. They don't have QOQ, Sashin, Otto, or Adora, or Bebe anymore, or Ria. A lot of people out the window. What, but you have in the tank role, you have Gushue, Lige, Bernard, and Takoyaki. Takoyaki, guess what team he played for? Element
Was it
Mystic.
Element Mystic?
Yep.
Oh my
Um,
god!
but yeah, no, he's a player that's been around since 2018, and I'm happy to see him in the league. I think he's a talented guy that absolutely has some chance, and it was interesting to see them kind of try and shuffle him in. Um, on Deep Ligue, I don't really know as much about, but he was on Team CC, and Team CC has been very, very dominant in Chinese contenders. Like they're perennially at or close to the top of the heap. So I think he's going to end up being someone to watch as well. DPS, we have returning Godsby and Architect, and we have Shy and Fuck It, Somin Sue.
I definitely had a moment of that's not a name
Which is like one of my favorite Twitter account name ever. Fuck It, Somin
fuck it,
Sue.
Soimin Sue. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, and then on the back line, they have Coldest, Mika, MCD, Element Mystic. Uh,
I read the name and I went, oh, McD, and everyone MCD, and I'm like, oh,
no, I
oh, I'm never gonna get that right.
trust me, it is like every fucking time I have that same thing.
We're
It's
all very American here.
yeah. Um, and they also had a new coaching staff. Their previous head coach Mask left during the end of the 2020 season, and basically right now their coaching duo during this week was Pajon, who former head coach of Fusion University and the Vancouver Titans during 2018 and 2020. 2018, 2019, 2020. Like pretty much as soon as they signed that roster, he was there. Um, um, and also, no, I don't know how to pronounce it, if it's like Noru or Noru. I don't know. Um, but he was a former coach for Runaway, and then later on Gen G before joining the Hangzhou Spark recently. Um, so this is a roster that has so much talent that I don't think they should look this rough.
Do we think it's a cohesion thing again?
I think that's part of it, but I think they just did not look well coached.
Eh.
And like frankly, I think Pajon has kind of had an easy job for a very long time in terms of coaching, because Fusion University, which is kind of where he kind of made his name initially, definitely was one of the most dominant teams in the history of Contenders, but they were fine without him or Arrow and still continued to dominate for a while after that. Um, and then the Vancouver Titans, I think that roster had such a ridiculous amount of cohesion and was so fucking good at goats that he really didn't have to do a tremendous amount. And on top of that, like when you saw them shift off of goats, they were still good. Like they still played together well and were more than good enough to beat most teams in the league, but they definitely looked sloppier and didn't adapt as well. So I think some of it kind of falls at the feet of the coaching staff, and we'll talk about that more later. Moving back over to NA, Houston Outlaws took on the Paris Eternal and got the 3-1 victory. I think Paris looked a lot better this time.
Yeah, they definitely picked up a bit. And I wonder if Paris, this iteration of Paris, might be one of those teams that plays up or plays down depending on who they're facing.
It could be, and maybe it's nerves. Like we'll see how they, perform going on when we have a larger sample size.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Boston Uprising making their season debut against the LA Gladiators. And this is another team with a fair number of changes. There are still a bunch of the players that were there last season. Fusions, Color Hex, Punk, and Myunbong. But bunch of new additions as well. DPS line has been supplemented with I'm 37 and Valentine. The tank line now has Stand 1 and Gable C. And they've picked up Faith on support, who is taking the place of
Well,
who is here?
it's FD God, I thought. No,
No,
not from
FD God
Boston.
was
FD God was on
Paris.
Paris. Wow, I just completely switched what blue team we were talking about.
Oh, Halo.
There we go. Well, it's good to see that they have it's good to see that they believe in their supports now, that they have faith.
The other
You knew I
big
was gonna.
I know. The other big change that they have is that they picked up a new coach named Laurie. And Laurie is a coach who's been working in Contenders since 2018, and he's a guy that I have a lot of faith in because he's done a very good job of like really building up rosters with like minimal resources and then making them into contenders. He did it for a team called Bermuda in Contenders NA. He did it for WGS Phoenix, and both of the teams really improved with him there. Um, and so I think he's a good addition to this staff here. So the Boston Uprising of old had basically, the thing is, I don't think they were ever a team that was bad at the meta. Like, I don't think, or at the very least, the version we saw last season, like, they understood the meta, they kind of knew what they had to do and what they were supposed to do. But the thing is, just man to man, they were overmatched by their counterparts on other teams. Like, you couldn't count on them to win the head to head against their competitors. And if if one of them gets taken out, it kind of dominoed.
Yeah. I mean, the best that Boston Uprising has ever looked was in season 1.
Yes, with the team that Krusty built, and
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
and
And I mean, again, keep in mind that this team was also supposed to have Soon on the DPS line.
which I think would have been a big addition.
Yep.
I think I'm 37 and Valentine have had their moments, but I feel like Boston Uprising still has some of those same issues, and or at the very least showed them in this 3-0 loss to the Los Angeles Gladiators.
And I mean, we talk about gladiators. We talk about how, yeah, they have one of the better main tanks. I'm sorry, off tanks in the league. We talk about Moth. We talk about, they've got the pieces there,
Yeah.
and we talk about them being upper average. Boston has been bottom of the barrel for 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So even if Gladiators isn't living up to the Scrimbucks, Boston is still pretty far down there. Which
Yeah,
is wild because Boston turned up in the, God, what was it? The Steel
the
Series
Steel Series,
tournament?
yeah.
There was a team that was like 90% their players, and they turned up and won that tournament, if I'm recalling this correctly.
I think they came in second, if memory serves, because I
Regardless,
think the
better than
Gladiators beat
expected.
them.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Regardless, better than expected.
Yeah,
So this
and
performance was not eh.
yeah, and we'll see if they're able to pick it up, and if like because again, I'm high on Laurie as a coach, and we'll see if he's able to sort of turn things around. But right now, this is looking like more of the same.
Which really sucks if you're a Boston fan, because
It,
man, they
it's
looked promising in the preseason.
it's yeah, it's not a start you want to see.
And it's
On
another instance of a blue team losing their DPS right before
Yep,
the season starts.
yep. Um, so on so we talked about a start you don't want to see, but conversely, next up, the Washington Justice versus the Dallas Fuel. Uh, we've talked about Dallas. Washington has a few changes this time around. Basically, they no longer have Arc, Stitch, Janu, and Aim God, and I wish they could have kept Janu and Stitch because my runaway boys, and I think they really showed up at the tail end of the season, like when that team improved.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they have a solid coaching staff in place with Supreme, Chilwa, and Hokuri. Um, but we have a pretty significantly overhauled team here. In main tank, they are also we have a newcomer, Mag from Runaway, who is like him and Muse were like the two Korean main tanks I was most excited to see hit the Overwatch League, and so far they're definitely living up to expectations. Maybe not Junggu tier, but And joining him on the front line, we have the off tanks of Fury and Rhea. On DPS, we have Tuba and Decay returning, but they have additional help from Jerry, formerly of Boston, and Assassin, also formerly of Runaway, who is another player I was very excited to see hit the Overwatch stage and has been a fucking monster so far. And then on support, we have Bebe and Closer. Really solid backline. Like, this is a roster that I think top to bottom has the potential to body people. And
I continue to be surprised that Boston let Jerry go.
yeah, and it's Boston's made a lot of questionable decisions over who to keep and who to let go.
And I mean, it's possible it's because they thought they were getting Soon. They thought Soon would mesh better with the DPS line that they were building. But god damn, if there was two powerhouses on Boston last year, it was Jerry and Myeonbong. And they kept Myeonbong and they left Jerry. And now Jerry is on Justice, kicking ass and taking names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and looking great doing it.
Yeah.
Washington Justice versus Dallas Fuel was a very closely contested game. This was a really hype one that I think definitely had moments where it could go either way. And I think the Fuel's roster limitations and a couple small mistakes just kind of kept them from going over that line in those situations. And Justice played really, really well and earned that 3-1 victory.
Was this the one where the 2CP map went down to 6 points versus 5 points?
Um, I think that was. I don't think so.
No, it was, I don't remember. It was something. There was one that was 6 versus 5. That
I
was.
think it was Boston versus Gladiators.
No. It might have been Paris and Vancouver.
Oh no! I think it was Gladiators versus Spitfire.
I don't think Glad and Spitfire was that hotly contested.
It doesn't need to have been. Like, you can have one close map, and I try to look it up on the website, and
It gives
the
up. I I just, after the first week, I was very, very happy the second week when they switched the order of maps, because first week it was control escort, not control escort, control combination escort 2CP control. And I personally love watching 2CP. I like playing it too, but 2CP is one of my favorite map types to watch, especially to watch the pros go at it.
mm,
So the fact that they switched this around so that we'd get 2CP even when it was 3 Overwatch makes me extremely happy, because now we do control combination 2CP escort and then control again if we need it.
yeah,
And then escort again if we fucking need it. Thank you, Houston and San Francisco.
yeah. That was such an insane match.
That was bug nuts.
Also, it's
Just utterly bug nuts.
I'm looking at the different
The map breakdowns.
the different map breakdowns, and it'll load anyone that I want to see from the week except Gladiators versus Spitfire. Every time I go to it, it's just kaboom, something happened to the layout of this page.
Okay, so then check Washington and Dallas, because
I
that's what
did.
I
It's not
initially
it.
thought it was. Damn.
It was 2-1 Hanamura.
Oh, you know what it might have been?
What?
Washington and Vancouver.
You might be onto something there, and I check, and you are not.
Well, that's
I
my life.
I think it's Gladiators versus Spitfire. Now I'm literally gonna pull up the fucking YouTube page to confirm this. Anyway, Justice looked good. Dallas still looked really competitive against them, and I think this was a showing from both teams that has positive implications.
Oh, yeah. feel like it's a good year to be a Justice fan. It was a good time to be a Justice fan in around the finals last year, just with Decay running train. And it looks like it's going to be a good, solid year to be a Justice fan, barring
Yeah.
anything going wrong.
God, what
Yeah.
match was
You know what? Someone in the comments will say something.
it?
We'll
Yeah,
find
no,
out
because
after this goes up.
I feel like it was one of the European teams, but I might be chatting absolute shit right now.
It's fine. It's fine. For now, we're moving back to
This is gonna
APAC.
drive me crazy.
We'll figure
But
it
yeah,
out.
we're moving back over to APAC. Oh, it was Eternal versus Titans. I found it.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, moving back over to APAC. Fuck them kids. Now,
Wow. Okay.
did I ever tell you the story of that?
You know, save it for later. We're running we're hitting 2 hours already. We're
To
not going to do another deep dive episode because we've been
Yeah,
doing the deep dive
yeah,
already.
shortest version possible. Pro wrestler who's known for maintaining like heel asshole character the entire time. Um, like pissed off some kid's dad at a signing, and the dad got mad on Twitter, and all the response the wrestler did was just tweet "fuck them kids." Uh,
Jeez.
so yeah, back over to APAC. Hangzhou Spark versus NYXL. NYXL beats him 3-1. Hangzhou again looked a little bit better, but still just several steps behind, like not meaningful improvement, which is just so much less than I expect from this roster. Um,
Yeah.
Chengdu against Philadelphia. Chengdu gets defeated 3-1 by Philadelphia. Back over to NA.
And this
Hugh,
was one of the this was closer than it looked in terms of 3-1.
it definitely was. It definitely was. Like Chengdu still looked very good. I wouldn't call this, Chengdu like shit in the bed by any stretch of the imagination.
No, this and watching this and having them put up like on the maps who won and then it was just the same shade of orange.
Yeah.
Like that's terrible visual shorthand. Somebody please fix this. Come on,
Yes.
guys.
So back over to NA. Houston Outlaws pick up a 3-0 win against the London Spitfire, who look a little better, but it's really the same story of just they pick up the tempo, they start making mistakes, and then they just get absolutely blasted by the other side of this equation. And I think the Outlaws are just stronger and better coached right now.
Yeah.
Boston Uprising drops against the Dallas Fuel 0-3. Same thing that I said about them before. And then Vancouver Titans versus the Washington Justice. Vancouver does pick up a map win, but Justice still convincingly 3-1s them.
I mean, Vancouver does pick up a map win, is looking like a lot of Vancouver's matches right now.
It's true. So yeah, that's kind of how things are looking for Vancouver, and we'll see if the other, if they can kind of get firing on all cylinders and start to look competitive. But I don't have a tremendous amount of faith in the coaching staff, and I feel like this team is kind of underpowered. But
Yeah. It's going to be yet another rough run for Vancouver, most likely. I will be interested to see what Vancouver versus Boston or Vancouver versus London looks like.
Vancouver versus Boston, that's good. That or like any of those three teams facing each other is just like it is El Clasico material.
It is, and I mean, first to three with 7 maps is going to be kind of hard to beat. And Houston and San Francisco tried, but the
They did.
difference is that was crazy high level Overwatch as opposed to mud wrestling.
Yeah, as, as opposed to just like two, as opposed to like just the clip from The Simpsons of like Sideshow Bob walking into the fucking rakes, like in stereo. Um,
Was
so
baby fights a Simpsons thing or a South Park thing?
I think that was a Simpsons thing, though it very well could be both. I don't know.
Regardless,
Um,
very much baby fights. I was covering DreamHack at the time, so I was on the convention floor, texting a friend occasionally, going, "So updates?" She's going, "Yeah, they're still playing." What? We're we're going to map 6. What? Muffin said the F word. What?
it was pretty fucking spectacular. But
Yeah.
that's the recap. It took a while, but we got there.
Yeah, like I said, we're not doing a deep dive team episode because we did the deep dive while we were recapping.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, on to the news that we haven't already covered. The
Well,
recentest of news.
yeah. One, Hangzhou Spark fires their coaches Pa Jian and Noryu after their roster underperforms.
Jazz hands.
Which
Freaking jazz hands.
on the one hand, yeah, it's not giving them a tremendous amount of time to right the ship, but obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And the other aspect of this is the shortest season we have so far. Not
Yeah, we
counting
got
tournament,
started.
not counting
Yeah.
tournaments, it is 16 games. They have played an eighth of the games that they are going to play this season already.
God, I didn't realize it was quite that short, but oh my God.
Yeah.
Super curious as to what the reasoning for that was. And I wonder if part of that is just for the reasoning for the shorter season. And I wonder if part of that is just COVID.
I think that very well could be a part of it. So there's that to take into account. Andante, who previously coached for GC Busan Wave and the Vancouver Titans in early 2019, has been promoted to interim head coach. Um, and they have also picked up Mentalist as an assistant coach who has been involved in Pro Overwatch since 2017. Recently coached the Atlanta Reign in the 2020 season, and then Billy Gaming, Hangzhou's academy team. So they've kind of called him up.
Yeah, it makes sense to move them up from the academy team to the big leagues, as it were.
Yes. And so I think, I'll be interested to see what this looks like because I think Mentalist is a fairly solid coach. And I think Andante has kind of proven himself as well. And we'll see if it makes any kind of impact or who they sign if they decide not to promote Andante to just permanent head coach. Um, we shall see. And
Yeah.
moving from Andante to Dante, Dante had to have his scrotum surgically fixed.
Yep. He did a twit longer about it actually earlier today, talking about it. Testicular torsion, which
Yeah,
can be really bad.
yeah, no, like the moment that I was go reading through that because I'm like, I see that he, had to go to the hospital and had to have surgery. I'm like, oh my god, what happened? Is he okay? And then I start reading the twit longer, and it just I hear and I see like after this bike ride, one of my nuts hurt, and I'm just like, oh, is this going where I think it's going? Oh my god, he Gavin freed it.
Oh,
Which
it's
yes,
just
Gavin
oh,
free is my
buddy.
touchstone for testicular torsion.
Gee, Cards Against Humanity is mine, which I guess is not a great touchstone. But yeah,
Um,
did you see that he's doing okay,
oh
which
yeah,
is
no,
good.
he's in good spirits, recovering, and will be back at it sooner than later.
Did you see the messages that he sent KSF before the match?
Oh my god, yes, that was fucking funny.
Yeah, KSF capped their Discord messages that Dante messaged in before the match. Hey, you got this. Tracer on Gibraltar is so easy. Just always fight cart. You're good at May, so the rest should be easy. When you wall, try to wall early because they're EU. Wall in front of Rhine, and it'll wall Rhine. I'm really sorry you had to get put in last minute without practice, but you're gonna pop off, I believe.
Yeah, it was
It's
just
like,
really
oh,
supportive.
buddy. Like,
I
yeah, it was incredibly sweet.
I also just love it's gonna wall Ryan because they're EU, and I'm like, yeah, Yeah, that makes sense. Like, if you watch the London Spitfire, it is a super European like approach to Overwatch.
Yeah. So that's just like, oh, but that's just really sweet.
Yeah,
Good mental, good teammates.
absolutely. And I I I am of all the reasons to be like, yeah, no, Kyle, we're gonna have you come in for Dante. He had to go to the hospital. Oh my god, is he okay? Yeah, he fucked up his nuts. Like, I'm glad he's okay, and I'm glad it was minor, but like, I'm glad everything was resolved before any sort of actual damage was done. But
Yes. But also, of all the reasons.
it is comical.
And I mean, thank goodness it was something that they were able to take care of, that it wasn't like life threatening. Like, it was bad, but it wasn't. We're
Yeah.
living in a pandemic. There are terrifying reasons
Well,
to
yeah.
be in the hospital right now, and thank God
Any
this was not one of them.
any time that you see the news that someone had to like rush to the hospital, you assume it's something worse than their testicles.
That's a hell of a phrase.
Am I
You're
wrong?
right, though. No, no, you're not.
You assume it's something. You assume like a very bad thing. And I mean, like, speaking as a testicle haver, I definitely don't want to have testicular torsion, but I'd rather have that than like a collapsed lung.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, we wish him the best. We're glad he's recovering.
Absolutely. So on to predictions. First up, we're going to have the Paris Eternal versus the Atlanta Reign. And this one, I think, really could go either way.
It could. I'm gonna go Atlanta.
I was thinking Paris.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes.
We
Bird is the word, right?
yeah, no, seriously, we're just choosing our preferred avian.
Yeah.
Up next, Washington Justice versus Boston Uprising, which that would have been hard for most of last season, but it really isn't anymore.
Yeah, now it's just Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving over to APAC, LA Valiant versus the Guangzhou Charge.
Guangzhou.
Yeah, I am also going Guangzhou.
As I mentioned on Twitter when I had a soul searching thread during opening day of this season, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to root for my ex because he knows what he did, doesn't care, and hasn't bothered to make amends.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of the X, the NYXL is up next, and they are up against the Seoul Dynasty. And
Soul.
yeah, my money's on Seoul.
Yeah.
Back to NA, Boston Uprising versus
You
London
missed one
Spit.
again.
Shit, fuck. It's just a long day, and I've been doing so much talking.
It's been a long everything. Let's
Yeah.
be real.
So I've also just been like writing all day when I'm not like running around taking care of stuff. But so just words. My brain is just like a pile of just free floating words smashing into each other.
And I
Um,
mean, we've hit 2 hours and it's 10 p.m. So,
yeah. Shanghai Dragons versus Hangzhou Spark. Shanghai.
Shanghai. I feel like Hangzhou can probably take at least a map and maybe push a map
If
5,
they
depending
can,
on.
yeah. If they take a first, if they take a map off of them, I think that's a step in the right direction.
We'll see what effect Mentalist and Adante have.
Yeah. Next, not prematurely this time, back over to NA. Boston Uprising versus London Spitfire. This one is kind of difficult, but I kind of want to give it to London.
Me too.
I feel
You,
like
you think we're
Boston.
in for another El Clasico?
Oh, this is El Clasico right here. This is the.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, this is just this is absolutely El Clasico. This is just a palette of Classico pasta sauce.
Oh, buddy. It's gonna
Um
be fun.
After that, we have a match that actually promises to be potentially pretty high level. San Francisco Shock versus the Florida Mayhem. Despite Shock suffering a setback, I still see them as the much stronger, as like the definitively stronger team here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Houston taking them out was unexpected to say the least, and it was a knockdown drag out for the both of them. For
And
here, I won't be surprised if it goes map 5, but I do think Shock will take it.
yeah, I could definitely see Florida taking a map or two. But the thing is about the Shock is one, they're so damn good to begin with, but when they suffer a loss, they're like it's like the team collectively is a Saiyan. Like when you deal
Hmm.
them a near mortal injury, they recover stronger.
I think they just get mad,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
it's
They
like
they get mad.
productively mad.
Yeah, they get mad and they want to fix it.
Yeah, they don't tilt. They go, all right, we're angry. We're going to take it out on the next people.
Yeah. And historically, that's exactly what's happened, and I expect it to happen here as well.
Hmm.
After that, Toronto Defiant versus the Washington Justice. I think Washington has this.
I think Washington as well.
Back to APAC. Seoul Dynasty versus LA Valiant. I have no
So,
problem rooting for Seoul here. Um, Guangzhou Charge versus Hangzhou Spark. What
oh,
what's Korean for El Clasico? Which obviously is like a butchering of like English and Spanish to begin with, but like what would the Korean
yeah.
equivalent be? Because I feel like that's what we're about to see.
I speak no Korean and no Mandarin or any other language spoken in China, so I can't. I'm not even going to try. Um, the numbers say that Hongshou should take this just in terms of the fact that they have been fairly consistently able to take a map, which
Yeah,
Guangzhou hasn't managed yet.
yeah,
But I keep going back to Choi Sohan bullying Void
yeah.
and going, if Guangzhou can just pull the pieces together, and this is a very good week for them to pull the pieces together and end with a 2-2 record.
Yeah, and
I
I think it's doable. I really do. And the thing is, I do think that these rosters have a comparable. Like I would give on paper Hangzhou the slight edge in terms of just like pure qualitative, but the way they're looking right now is fairly similar. But the difference is Choi Siwan is a fucking monster. And while I do think Hangzhou has been performing a bit better as a whole, the question is like how many games that Houston had last year were closer than they would have been if you had anyone other than Dante playing. It's
yeah.
will like barring improvement from Guangzhou, um like if they perform the way that we've seen them do up to now, and that is like the level we see them play at, then I feel like Hangzhou is going to be destabilized by Choi Se-hwan and not able to stuff him to the extent that they can recover their momentum.
Yeah, I mean, we might wind up with, again, just bottom of the barrel Overwatch 7 maps, dear God, but I am throwing in for Guangzhou here.
Yeah,
So we'll
it
see.
I genuinely don't know who to pick, so I'm going to just roll a die. Odd is going to be Guangzhou, and even is going to be Hangzhou. It's going to be Guangzhou.
Alrighty.
Um,
Yeah, the coin flip matches.
yeah, that the thing is like I can see a very strong argument made either way, and I can also see them any of those arguments not mattering.
Yeah.
After that, Shanghai Dragons versus NYXL, which once upon a time would have been a very a match we would think about differently than we do now.
Yeah.
But Shanghai.
Shanghai, definitely.
And now with that, we go back over to NA one final time. Florida Mayhem versus the Paris Eternal. I give that to Florida.
Florida, definitely.
London Spitfire versus the Toronto Defiant. I give that to Toronto.
Same. I feel it's going to be a matter of has London managed to iron out any of their issues, but we've seen Toronto have a good showing already.
Yeah, I have more confidence in the performances that they have given us to date than I do in London's ability to close that gap this quickly.
Yeah.
But again, prove me wrong. I'd love for this to be really competitive and see the British Hurricane squad, absolutely take it to Toronto. That would be fucking cool because more competition in this sort of, endeavor is never a bad thing.
Yeah. I think London's prospects for the May Melee itself are pretty much shot,
Yeah, they're
but we'll see how this goes.
yeah that's kind of flown the coop at this point. Um,
Hey, because they're planes.
uh,
Anyway,
so finally, San Francisco Shock versus Atlanta Rain. With
shock.
yeah, Shock. Uh, Sorry, Sephi, they're better without you.
It just, yeah. I mean, this is another one of those. I'm pretty sure there's a rivalry here. And I think that happened during the season 2 playoffs when Atlanta knocked San Francisco down to the play-in bracket because of because of that C9.
Yeah.
And I think ever since then it's just, and maybe this is me reading too much into it, but I feel like ever since then it's been loggerheads.
Well, I also feel like, Atlanta, particularly head coach and manager Brad Sefi Rajani, has something to prove because remember, he was I believe the head coach of the San Francisco Shock for the first half of the inaugural season before being supplanted in favor of our Lord and Savior Krusty.
Yeah.
So basically, this motherfucker took your job. Uh,
And did it better.
so much better. Um,
Yeah, it's hard to argue with back-to-back
yeah.
championships.
So I feel like, anytime these teams match up, Sephi is gonna have a thing to prove. And I mean, so you can call it, a rivalry, but is it really a rivalry if it's that like one-sided?
I mean, yes, but it's very much the point of view. I
Atlanta
feel
just
like
sitting over here, just like, I'll harm you. Like,
I I feel like I don't remember which show. I'm sure it was an anime. I don't remember which one
uh-huh.
where it's like there's supposed one character thinks it's a rivalry, the other character doesn't fucking know they exist. And
I was gonna say, like, it's like Kakashi and Guy in Naruto.
a little bit, but my brain's like it's fucking All Might and Endeavor.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think All Might knows Endeavor's like has a chip on his shoulder and is an asshole.
I mean, All Might's a good sport and Endeavor is trash. And that is
Agreed.
not a one-to-one parallel with these teams at all.
And
We
and
are
I get
specifically
yeah,
talking about the anime.
yes, and I get this reference now. I've finally been watching.
Yeah.
So
Yes. But yeah, I feel like this was also a clash of big personalities.
oh yeah,
Super on San Francisco, and until this year, Dogman,
yeah.
who is
Uh,
now off doing his own thing, which, more power to him. I wasn't a fan of him at all, but he's hosting his own thing and it's going well, and, good for him.
yeah, you're generally not a fan of anyone who talks anything approaching an excessive amount of shit. And Dogman
Yeah.
absolutely did that.
I mean, talk shit, fine, but there's a certain flavor that's just like, can we not? Can
Yeah.
we fucking not?
Hmm.
We can talk shit and still be good sports.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was. And I mean, let's be real. I was biased against Atlanta from the get go because of calling it Defranta, and whatever.
Yeah. No,
Something, something, something. Katie's issues. These are all on tape anyway. You can go back and
yes.
listen to the podcast. Yeah. Good times, great oldies. And then Sunday is completely blank
Yeah,
because those are all knockouts.
Sunday, Sunday is going to be just a wild thing because I feel like in the current standings, there's a bunch of teams that, could end up going either way. Like, the Dallas Fuel are probably going to end up there. The Gladiators are probably going to end up there. Toronto's probably going to be okay with a 3-1. Um, like, anyone who's got the 2-2 is probably going to end up there. And I feel like.
Houston is the top seed, and I think
Mhm.
the only NA team guaranteed right now. And I find that hysterical as someone who has, again, been a Houston fan since season one. It's been a long, rough road, but we're finally here.
Yeah,
Let me
Houston's
be
like,
happy.
no, like I'm not even faulting you, because again, like, they may not be my team, but it is like I've wanted them to do well and have been frustrated when circumstances or their own decisions, because there's a fair bit of both, a lot that
Mm-hmm.
they could control and a lot that they absolutely couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly shooting them in the foot.
Yeah, and now there's a chance.
I
I'm
mean,
so happy.
I think there's more than a chance. Like, I think probably they're like, at the very least, they're going to go deep. Which, like, when was the last time you could say that?
Season one, maybe, sometimes ish.
Like, once.
Eh. Yeah, we kind of wound up at the stoplight.
Yeah. Ironic considering your primary color is green.
And for those who weren't around for season one or remember what that was the bottom three teams being the bottom being Shanghai, which was red, right above them being Mayhem, which was yellow at the time, and then right above them being Houston, which is green. The stoplight.
Yep. And I was constantly amused by it.
I know. It hurt me.
I,
These were the days where we were watching the match between Florida and Shanghai with bated breath because oh my god, Florida only had 6 players, but if Shanghai was gonna win, it was gonna be
well,
against
I mean,
Florida, and then they didn't.
that was El Clasico episode 1, the Phantom Menace. Like,
That's true.
I
It even had someone in red and black.
just, I want to take like the fucking footage of their walkouts and just have Duel of the Fates playing. And just have all the sloppy as fuck plays. Just like,
What you need to do is find either a kazoo version or a
oh,
what are the
there's a
little
shitty flute version.
no like kazoo, not even shitty flute, kazoo, or what are the little like monotone things with the mouths that are terrible? Do
A,
you have any idea what I'm talking about?
a vuvuzela?
No, they look like musical notes, but the round part at the bottom has little eyes, and when you squeeze the sides, it opens its mouth and it emits like a single toned sound. It's mono something.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about now.
Damn it. Uh, oh my god. Google's
Yeah,
not going to help me with
no,
this.
it's probably not. Like,
I don't know what this is. Damn it.
you're gonna remember the name like an hour from now. Is the thing.
Oh, I can never remember the fucking name of these things. Are you kidding? It's just never. I never know what they're called. It might not even be mono something. It's a musical. It's not even an instrument. It's just plastic bullshit. And they're terrible. And I don't know what they're called, but there are so many song covers with these things. Ugh.
Again, all I can think of, like, I have no idea. I have no idea.
This is
Um,
gonna drive me crazy.
in any case, that is our show. We have done it. We have caught up. We have covered the news. We have covered the matches. We've made predictions. We fucking did it, y'all.
Now I'm finding pictures of these damn things, but they're not telling me what they are.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I'm trying to, oh, god damn it, because it's all like funny instruments. And I'm like, fuck you, tell me what the funny instrument is called. I'm so mad. YouTube doesn't tell me shit. Anyway.
I'm trying to close this out.
I'm trying to close this chapter in my mind. What is this fucking instrument? I'm sure there's someone listening who's just screaming it.
It is entirely possible.
Otamatone! Those bastards.
Is that the title for this episode? Otamatone, in just a fucking all caps, exclamation point, those bastards.
I was thinking of calling it the custody cup.
That's a good one. I'm proud of that one.
Credit where credit is due. Avi made the original joke. We just refined it.
True. And like part of me wants to say you don't expect it to be testicles, but I know you're not going to do that.
I mean, we did have an episode entitled something about NYXL being the power bottom of APAC.
Yeah. We have some good episode titles. We're not like we're not as like we're not like the Super Best Friends cast, but because they had fucking they had an episode titled "That's Not My Baby, That's a Pile of Syringes."
That's terrifying.
Yeah, no, like they had a lot of just like absolutely comically like awful names.
Yep. Just you go places in a podcast sometimes, and then those places wind up being your title.
Pretty much.
But yeah, it's either gonna be the Custody Cup or the Element Mystic Reunion Tour, and I think I've already made an Element Mystic title, so it's probably gonna be the Custody Cup. Anyway, thank you for listening to all of this madness as we catch up on the off season and 2 weeks of play. Good lord.
Yes, the next one's gonna be shorter.
See, we say that, but it's us.
Oh god.
So hopefully the next one will be shorter.
Yeah, hopefully.
Anyway, I'm Katie. You can follow me all over the social medias as well as on YouTube and Twitch at Kiaxet. That is Kiaxet. If you like reaction videos, if you like weird, funny things, they live on that YouTube channel. I am also on a podcast for Rooster Team Radio. We talk about all things Rooster Team, and right now we are like hip deep and sinking into our recap of Ruby Volume 8, which has been absolutely bug nuts. So you should join us. That is also a super fun time.
I'm CJ. You can follow me on Twitter at @the_rage_nerd. I don't really have too much going on that can be watched, but I'm working on things, and so hopefully I'll be able to announce something soon. We shall see.
Soon. Very rarely can I do that in a context where people will get it.
Well, I was also about to say, man, not gonna be hearing that anytime soon. And that's where it ends. Just the groan, like hard cut.
No, we still have more sign off to do.
Ah. It's perfect.
We're on Anchor, as you all know this. We're on your podcast apps of choice. Follow us on Twitter at OnThePointPod. And of course, we end with the important things. Wear a mask whenever you go outside. Doesn't matter where you're going or how long you plan on being out. Wear a mask. It protects you a little bit and other people a lot, and that is the point. Also, when and if you are able to get vaccinated, do so. And when you are vaccinated, continue to wear a mask and social distance. You know, do your best, do the individual stuff. It helps.
Yeah, you're not good to go the second you get vaccinated. It takes time for your body to produce to like basically accept the vaccine for the full effects to sort of kick in. Just best practices, because the last thing we want to do is, through, you know, basically
We
just,
don't need more variants.
yeah, we
We
don't need,
don't need
yeah,
more COVID variants. So even when you are fully vaccinated, continue to wear the mask in public and social distance. Just,
absolutely.
we're working on it, but be chill.
Yeah, which I know that it sucks. I know that it's frustrating. I know that you don't want to do it, but for the sake of yourself and others, please.
Yes. Support your essential workers. Be kind to your essential workers. They don't get the option to work from home, and they are often dealing with people who do not see kindness to their fellow humans as a priority. So be kind, be patient, wear your mask and socially distance around them. This also goes for your postal workers. Support your postal workers, support the post office, and be patient. There are still shenanigans happening there, so, be cool. Black Lives Matter, Black LGBTQIA lives matter, Black trans lives matter, Black Lives Matter, AAPI lives matter. That has not changed. That is not going to change.
Fucking facts.
And get involved in your local politics. If you are eligible and able to vote in a local election, even if it's for something that you think might not affect you as much, like, say, school board elections, even if you don't have a kid, do your research, make sure you check your voter registration, make sure you vote in your local elections, because the people you elect, it trickles up. You make the change locally, and then they go on, and then they make the change local, state, it goes up to federal, and then all of a sudden the person who you voted to be your senator is now the vice president of the United States, and it's pretty fucking awesome.
You have
So get involved
no
in your local politics.
you have no idea the rant I could go on about the importance of like bottom up grassroots political movements, and like how, people either acknowledging or failing to acknowledge the importance of that has affected our current political climate in the United States. But that would be like another 2 hours, and I don't think either of
Yeah.
us are ready for that right
It's
now.
the wrong podcast for that. But
Yes.
make Stacey Abrams proud. Get involved.
Goddamn
And
right.
on top of that, contact your representatives. They represent you, so they need to know what you want. So if you think they're doing a great job, tell them, be specific. And if you think they're doing a terrible job, tell them, be specific, and let them know what they should be doing instead. If you don't want to make a phone call, which that's perfectly valid, you can text, you can email. If you have access to a fax machine, you can still fax. All of them are perfectly legitimate, but your representatives are there to represent your interests. So make sure that they know what your interests are, whether that's positive reinforcement for the job that they've been doing or course correction if you think they're idiots. Be polite, but do it. And again, to reiterate, Black Lives Matter, AAPI Lives Matter, wear a mask, get vaccinated, and take care of each other, because that is the only way we're going to get through this, is basic human compassion. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we can't just skip there. We have to take care of each other, and we're getting there the long way. So do that. Remember that we love you. And thank you for listening. We got anything else?
Nope.
All right. Let's C9.